Welcome to day 18, Kingdom Builders, day 18 of our No Complaining Challenge. And today, we're going to talk about something that happened to me personally, which is I got a guy that works with me that every single week, he does the same thing. And internally, I'm voicing my frustration to him because I've already voiced it externally. And this week, it hit me. Wait a minute. I'm the one tolerating this. I'm the one allowing the environment to exist where this person can operate with impunity, where he can do these things. So I just need to provide a better structure. And that's what day 18 is going to be about. Day 18 is about a question that I've asked myself more than I'd like to admit. And it's, what if the reason why I keep complaining about this person is because I'm the one that keeps choosing to allow this person to affect my peace? And so I'm asking you the same question. What if the thing that you keep complaining about is the thing that you keep choosing, the thing that you keep allowing to come into your life and affect your peace? And I'm not talking about everything, okay? Not the tragedies or the losses that you can't prevent or the things that just genuinely happen. I'm talking about things that frustrate you, that you see on a regular basis in your relationships, in your life, in your business. The same coworker, the same argument, the same environment, the same yes or same no. And you somehow convinced yourself that it's just happening to you. And sometimes the problem is not what's happening to us. Sometimes the problem is that we keep choosing those things that take away our energy. We keep tolerating the things that frustrate us. And we keep repeating what we already know doesn't work. I think a guy, I don't know if it was Albert Einstein, but someone said, to keep doing the same thing and expect a different result is the very definition of madness. And when we complain about the same thing, but we're doing the same thing and expecting a different result, it's madness. So here's something complaining is very, very good at. Complaining is good at letting us release our frustration, letting us voice our anger, disappointment, letting us voice our unsatisfaction with the situation without necessarily taking accountability or responsibility for it. And in that moment, complaining does feel like you're actually doing something. It feels like action. But it's not. Yes, you said it out loud, you vented, you quote unquote got it off your chest. And you might think, yeah, that counts for something, and it does, but what does it really count for? Complaining that never becomes a decision isn't processing. It's just a substitute. A substitute for action, a substitute for progress. And a lot of times it takes you backwards. It's like when we talked about the difference between venting and complaining. Complaining is that pressure valve that it lets enough of the stress out, but the whole system has to change. And I want to be careful here because I know I can sound dismissive sometimes, or I can sound like I'm blaming people for their pain, and that's not what this is. Some things are really outside of your control, but there is a category of things. There is an aspect of things that is within your power to change. And for that category, we can refer to Scripture because Scripture doesn't leave us room to complain indefinitely. Eventually, you got to do something. You got to either change or stop complaining about it. And those are the only two options left. Anything else, whether you choose to stay in a relationship, tolerate an abusive person, repeat words, negative words to yourself, those are not neutral acts. That third option is something that we invented so we wouldn't have to choose between the other two options. And it costs us the very thing complaining pretends to protect: our sense that we still have power. So you might not control everything that happens to you, but you are responsible for what you continue to participate in. So hear me out there. You can't control what happens to you. You can control what you choose to participate. And so for tonight, I want to look at 4 pillars. In fact, let's call them the 4 mirrors. 4 mirrors of this podcast, of this story. And we're going to hold these mirrors up like we do a regular mirror. And it's not to condemn, but just to reveal. And you ask yourself as you read these, as you hear me say these, which of them applies to you. The first mirror is the mirror of the yes that should have been a no. And this is, my wife is very guilty of this. When she'll take on too many responsibilities just because she doesn't want to say no. And it's an admirable task because you want to help people, but you end up suffering at the end. And so when you take on these tasks and you know it's too much, now you're overwhelmed. And guess what you do? You complain. Mirror number 2 is the conversation that you keep avoiding. You know you're supposed to talk to that person about the thing that they're doing it just drives you crazy, and you keep putting it off. And silently you're complaining. I can't take this anymore. I don't like this person. All you need to do is have a conversation. Mirror number 3 is your surroundings, the environment that you keep going back to. Because maybe you just avoid a conversation that needs to happen. That's very different than refusing to go into an environment. Because no plan, no boundary or system, and then frustration finds a way to creep in. And chaos comes from having no plans, no boundaries. So mirror 4 is the structure you refuse to build. And that's what we just talked about, is not having any plans, any set boundaries. You let anybody in, let anybody out. These are just things to think about. But at the end of the day, our goal here is, what are those things that we're tolerating, that we're allowing, and that they end up being things that we complain about? Paul wrote a scripture very plainly, and he said, let each person examine their own work, not everybody else's work, not the co-workers, not the spouse, your own. And notice what Paul's protecting. He's protecting us from a life spent auditing everyone else's choices while we sit on our own unexamined. And complaining is an outward experience. And it studies everything that somebody else did. So as we start this new day, let's look at what we're tolerating. Look at the environments that we're in and see what we can do better.